Hey, everybody. Welcome to Wish We Were Then, the show that's been doomed to repeat history so that you may learn from it. It's a lofty claim we make. We make that claim just about every week, it feels like. We're
Definitely
doomed to
every
repeat
week.
history. Yeah, you're right at this point. We've been doomed to repeat history. This is a curse that's been thrust upon us. But it's a great responsibility because we're
we
doing
have
this to make sure
we have great power,
Yeah, we do.
and with
That's-
great power,
See, people don't think about it that way. With great responsibility, sometimes comes great power. So I don't mind having this
true.
charge laid on us. We do this so that people, you don't go back and relive the mistakes of the past. And you also don't remake the greatest movies of the past, I guess, and the greatest songs. You have to come up with your own stuff. We can't relive history over and over again. What do you say, Mark?
I say that's why we do this, because you guys just don't learn. It's a burden we carry, teaching you how to wish you were then. But here we are, do it week in and week out, and this year is no different.
That's true. My name's Trey, by the way. I'm the other host here. We got Mark, we got Trey. Everyone's in attendance? I believe so. Listeners, are you
Present. To
Oh,
be
yeah, I'll-
determined, I guess.
there? Hold on, I think I'm missing one of them. Okay, that's all 7 of them. All right, good. Just kidding. There's more of you out there than that. I know there's probably, that's the big thing we don't account for when we look at the numbers is there's probably groups of families that are listening to this together. You know what I mean? So when you look at the individual numbers, it's like there could be 5 or 6 per. I'm thinking.
They all get together and they listen to it or on the radio. Like,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
It's 1960. Oh,
Boy, get in here. We got something to put on the television. We need your help to cast it. Well, I think you might have heard a number in there a second ago that could give you some ideas about where we're going. So often on this show, me and Mark both, but I know especially when I'm doing these little intros, we talk a lot about our expectations for the year going into it, kind of our presuppositions, the things we expect to see, and a lot of times that's tied in with, whether or not it fits in with the decade that we're looking at specifically. Does it match up with the rest of the years in that decade? And usually towards the beginning of a 10-year period, those defining characteristics aren't necessarily fully formed yet when it comes to a decade. But that being said, I think this year is kind of one of the weakest in terms of its personal identity in my mind, I think. But this year, really, it didn't feel like the 50s and it didn't feel like the 60s to me. It was kind of a year just on its own, a year without a home, in my opinion, a little bit. We are going to take a look at 1960 today on the show.
I think what you're trying to say is that this is probably the most transitional year we've ever done. Because
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Actually, I don't know if this was intentional or not, avoided doing like round numbers, so like the zeros and the fives. So we're getting to them now. And this is like the truest one that feels like it's the perfect transition between the 50s and the 60s. It's like everything is kind of being laid out for leaving what was in the past and being welcoming to what's coming in the future.
I think that's a good way of looking at it. But this, like I said, I don't really think this felt that much like the 50s either. The music was a little different, but it wasn't quite what I think of as the 60s. I think the early 60s are sort of a lost period of time for a lot of people when it comes to pop culture stuff.
I think it all blends together.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't any more, kids in leather jackets, greasers, and stuff like that, and rock and roll from the 50s that you think of. But when we think of the 60s, we tend to think of the late 60s and the Beatles and the, Woodstock and hippies and all that kind of shit,
Yeah. But again, like I said, I feel like this is the good jumping off point. For example, there was a couple incidents that led up to President Eisenhower signing the Civil Rights Act in 1960. I mean, for those of you that don't know, it was to basically give everybody the same rights under like Supreme Court law. So there was actually, you can't segregate between bathrooms and water fountains and different buses just based on somebody's skin color.
And it strengthened basically what had come before it. And I forgot to write that. Was it 54 or something like that? There's another a Civil Rights Act that kind of established those facts, but there was no enforcing of it that was, provided for in the language of the bill. So this was just sort of trying to nail that all down and go, look, this isn't just a suggestion. You have to do this stuff. And a big part of it was for voter registration rights. That it established federal inspection of local voter registration polls and introduced penalties for anyone who obstructed someone else's attempt to register to vote. Yeah. So it was like everyone has the right to vote, but it wasn't being given. It wasn't being honored, that right,
Yeah. So this was them enforcing that.
Some of the other facets of the bill that I found interesting were that it also imposed criminal penalties for obstruction of court orders to limit resistance to the Supreme Court's school desegregation decisions. So basically what I was saying, that now it's enforceable, that there's penalties if you try to not desegregate your school. It also arranged for free education for military members' children and banned the act of fleeing to avoid prosecution for property damage. That last one felt kind of weirdly thrown in there, and
Yeah,
when I first read it,
paper clipped in there.
Yeah, I was kind of like, what does that? You can't flee to avoid property damage. What does that have to do with the rest of this stuff? I guess what was going on was people were like vandalizing and using explosives and stuff like that sometimes on voter registration sites that they disagreed with because they were in an area that was going to register voters they weren't happy about, and then would flee back to their own, counties, states, whatever, to avoid the authorities in their own state.
That makes sense. So that made it so they could go after them in other states.
Yeah,
in general.
Essentially.
So you couldn't do that before.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's sort of one of those things where I think there wasn't the language of that strictly laid out. Where I guess if they did pursue them, they captured them, whatever, they still would face justice or their penalties or whatever. But they weren't in trouble for fleeing that state. That wasn't added in on that wasn't a charge
Gotcha.
at all.
Okay. Because I was like, I know that there's, people would go out and capture people in other states for a long time. It's been a job people have had.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So actually leaving the state and fleeing is the crime now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Heard.
You mentioned that there were a couple things that led up to this.
Yes. One of them being in North Carolina Agricultural and Technical College in Greensboro. A stage-in was set for a segregated Woolworth's lunch counter, which is denying people service for being black. And it caused a national campaign, and 70,000 students, both white and black, over the next 8 months, did sit-ins across the nation for civil rights.
The first 4 students who did actual, they planned this out ahead of time, because one of them was like getting off the bus or something like that in town and tried to buy a hot dog at a local vendor, and the guy wouldn't sell it to him. So he's just like, we can't keep living like this, So they went to Woolworths, where they had been many times before, and they bought a bunch of shit. They went and, used their money to buy goods in the store. Then when they walked from a regular cash register over to the counter, they ordered food, and the girl said, "You can't order here." And he said, "We just paid for services right there. We were 4 feet that way, and you guys took our money." And she said, "Yeah, but not at this counter. It's not going to work." And a bunch of the people who were there kind of told him, like, you guys are just causing trouble. A couple of black people specifically told them, like, "Why are you guys rocking the boat, dude? You're just going to make this worse for everyone." And, there was one old white lady who said, like, my only regret for you guys is that you didn't do this 10 years ago. So that was cool that she was on their side.
Yeah.
They stayed until closing, and then they came back every day with more and more people. And it became something where eventually, because of boycotts and everybody else in this gaining so much traction, Woolworth lost around $200,000 in potential sales and stuff like that, and from all the boycotts, which would be about $2.1 million today.
Damn.
So then the manager kind of quietly told 4 of the black employees there to change out of their work clothes and put on their street clothes and go up and order from the counter. So in doing that, Geneva Tisdale, Susie Morrison, Anitha Jones, and Charles Bess were the first black people served at Woolworths. And the names of the original four, just to give them some credit: Azell Blair Jr., David Richmond, Franklin McCain, and Joseph McNeil were the first.
Shout
four
out,
guys.
guys.
Yeah, fucking brave, man.
Yeah,
Especially because it's you think of it as being like, well, those guys just sat there all day because they wanted their rights. Like that's not how it went. People were fucking screaming at them and threatening them, and
Oh yeah.
being real monsters.
Oh yeah. I believe. Well, totally different time. Crazy. All right. Well, moving on to a little bit other, more fun, I would say, news things. John F. Kennedy would win as a Democratic candidate for the United States against Nixon on November 8th, 1960.
Yeah, right up to that, which one of the big things that led to this happening was on September 26th, the first televised presidential debate occurred.
Oh, yes.
It was the first time anyone got to see these two arguing it out on actual television. And, you put Nixon up against JFK and show everybody, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm voting for that guy. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, now it becomes a popularity contest. From here on out, it's a popularity contest, in my opinion, because it's who talks the best, who looks the best, who presents themselves the best. Yeah, so this is the start of that, which is crazy. All right, do you want to move on to food stuff?
Let me go ahead and do
Actually, I have
just one thing. You go ahead.
the first Playboy Club opened
I was
up
just
in
gonna say that.
Chicago on 116th East Walton Street in downtown Chicago.
Yeah, I was just, I was thinking that's a decent little segue into food because
Yeah.
it was like a place that you would eat and stuff back then.
Yeah, eat.
The first acts to open up the club were comedian Dick Gregory and a then 17-year-old Aretha Franklin.
Dang.
Fucking gross, dude. Why? Out of anybody in the world, why do you have to choose a teenager to be the person who opens up the Playboy Club?
Yeah. Weird.
Very weird. Over the next 2 decades, 24 different clubs opened and closed.
Dang.
So one would open, it'd last a couple years, or it'd last 10 years, or it would last 15 years, but they all closed. So over 24 clubs opened and closed within a 2-decade span. Each club generally featured a living room, a playmate bar, a dining room, and a club room. Members and their guests were served food and drinks by bunnies, some of which had been in the actual magazine. There would be big name acts in the club rooms, and then in the living rooms, it would be like local musicians or magicians.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting little thing.
And who goes to a strip club to watch a magic show?
Right? Well, I mean, there's certain ones. You can,
Well, I'm sure
you
there's
can
magical
see.
things that go on there, but not. You're right, Trey. Great transition into food.
Are you hungry, folks? Well, if it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in your face. On June 23rd, Hardee's opened.
There's a lot of places that opened. A lot of Domino's Pizza opened up.
Yeah, their first location was in Michigan.
Yeah.
The Hardee's thing I thought was interesting because I was just sort of doing some research about them and their business and everything like that. They didn't combine with Carl's Jr. until 1997. So it was pretty recent. I thought they had, been together for a long time. I mean, now it's been a long time, but you know what I mean? When I was younger, I didn't realize we were there for the marriage of these two brands.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, and so like Hardee's now, because I've lived in states that have Hardee's now, and they just look like Carl's Jr. and have pretty much the same menu. It's funny, in Wisconsin, there was a couple different Wisconsin-esque items. Like there was like a big hot ham was the name of one of the dishes you can get. And
What
it
is
was
that?
it's just a ham sandwich, but the ham is hot inside of it. I just thought it was the funniest name for something on a menu. I'll take a big hot ham. And very Wisconsin-y. A lot of deli. There was like roast beef sandwiches and stuff like that on the menu. So, but other than that, they're the same. They have the same logos, all the star, all that kind of stuff, and all that just came from Carl's Jr. But the thing that really blew my mind about that was that when they came together, there were 3,152 Hardee's locations in 40 different states and about 10 foreign countries. And there were 676 Carl's Jr.'s. So many less. 3,152 to 676. But Carl's
Weird.
Jr. is like the dominating one there. And they were mostly all in California. So it was just like they just annexed a whole ass restaurant empire and just be like, now you guys are Carl's Jr. You did a lot of work for us.
No wonder everybody's all pissed off. They're like, no, it's not Carl's Jr.'s, it's Hardee's.
Yeah, that's really.
There's people that are like super passionate about that. Now
Yeah,
it
now it
kind of
makes
makes sense.
Yeah, it is really strange for them to just come just full dominate them so hard. Like, how do they have that much more money than them?
I don't know.
There's the
Backing,
markup on ham isn't as,
right?
as big as cutting little chickens into stars.
Speaking of ham, people started putting things in aluminum cans like Spam, for example. It's the first time anybody would use aluminum cans for food or beverages
Oh, wow.
instead of glass or...
Spam was the first one, or
No,
was
just
an example? Okay.
no, just an example of one that
That's
would
pretty
be
crazy,
eventually
though.
be used.
Huh. Yeah. Wow, that's so crazy. I would have thought.
Well, it was tin.
Oh,
before.
tin. Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Yeah, I was just thinking. You think of in the 50s they had a lot of stuff, but yeah, tin cans is something that phrase I still know. I don't know. I probably younger people don't know just immediately think of tin cans as a thing because they're not around anymore, really.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, even when I think of a tin can, I think of the aluminum ones that are in my fridge or my cupboard, you know?
I think of a billy goat on a football field eating a tin can. And or you think of like a tin of fish, you know? That's
Yeah.
like one of the few things you still kind of say, even though I'm sure that's not tin anymore.
No, and it has to be aluminum.
I think tins, I just imagine it's not great for you to keep your food in. Like it seems
Yeah, I
like it's
don't know.
a more porous metal or like it bleeds into your food or something like that.
Yeah, probably right.
Well, if you got a fishy mouth full of tin, how are you going to make it smell better? You could chew some Trident gum, came out this year, as well
Oh,
as
nice.
Fruit Stripe gum.
Oh.
Yeah, two different ends of the spectrum there, you know. Fruit Stripe famous for losing its flavor within the first 5 seconds of chewing it. But it looks damn cool, and you can use the wrappers as tattoos. And then also Haagen-Dazs first came out as an ice cream.
Dang.
We've mentioned them before too. I think it was in 1976, I want to say, that they opened their first brick and mortar location. So if you're an avid listener and you go, wait a minute, we've talked about Haagen-Dazs before. There you go.
That's where it's from.
Lots of callbacks on this episode.
Yeah, I think it's something that we're going to be doing a lot more of as we get into these later episodes.
Yeah.
I got one more food thing. Granny Smith apples were first imported from New Zealand to the U.S.
Wow, man, there's some really shocking things here. Just stuff that I would have never thought of when Granny Smith apples.
Yeah,
Came
like
around?
I just feel like they were always around.
Yeah, like I just picture Johnny Appleseed fucking grabbing a Granny Smith off of a.
No, they're always
a
like,
tree, you know?
like our bitter apples is what we know, like is what we have in America traditionally. They weren't
Is that
like
their name?
sour like this. No, but they're just like bitter.
Oh, like we have like crab apples and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the flavor profile of our apples isn't really sweet, I would say. Apples aren't real sweet fruit.
That's like better for a cider, isn't it? Or I guess if you want like a drier cider.
Yeah, Granny Smith's would probably be a good cider too, like sour almost.
Yeah, that might be all right. I like the idea of apple cider. It's so hard to find a good one though.
Yeah, they're always too sweet.
Mm-hmm. They're too sweet and then usually too flat too. It's like I want it to be crisp. I want it to just taste like Martinelli's basically.
There's cideries where we live in Fallbrook. They have
Oh.
good ones because you get them fresh from there. You know, go in the fall, perfect.
All right. Well, I got some sort of tech stuff. Let's see. Well, science, I guess we'll say. Let's look at the world of science first. Up top in the natural science world, on again another callback. July 14th, Jane Goodall first arrives at the Gombe National Preserve. We talked about how there was a big chimp war in 1974, where she witnessed them totally brutalizing each other. If you haven't heard that episode, give it a listen. Very interesting. 1974. But on November 4th of this year, she witnessed a chimpanzee using a grass stalk to extract termites from a mound. And this was the first recorded case of tool use by any animal.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like animals have been around for an extremely long time. I guess this is the first time, European or American scientist had made note of it, I guess. I don't know how that's... wasn't recorded before this. I think people were probably, they do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's... Just because she discovered it, I don't think it doesn't mean it hasn't been happening for like hundreds of years.
Yeah, exactly. But
there is
as far
something that they found orangutans spearfishing because the orangutans were watching humans do it.
Yeah, now that's pretty crazy.
And that's way different. It's crazy.
I think I remember this is like a story from a few years ago that I read that, and the craziest part is that they're just like mimicking the human behavior. Their arm muscles aren't built in a way that they can actually like throw a spear and actually catch stuff with it, but they like see us doing it and it's successful for us, so they're trying to replicate that behavior. So it's like totally unnatural for them to be doing it because they can't even really do it. They just see us and they're like trying to figure out how to do it. So like we're training them to problem solve, Yeah. Like they're gonna keep trying this and like this isn't working for us. How do we do this in our way,
How many millions of years before it's Planet of the Apes? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. They're gonna be like, well, they're driving around in cars. How do we make cars?
Where can I get a Glock? The USSR launched Sputnik 5 into Earth's orbit carrying 2 dogs, 40 mice, 2 rats, and a variety of plants. The capsule was successfully returned August 20th.
Cool. They came home?
Yep. They first like a successful living things that go to space and come back.
Put a lot of eggs in that basket.
Yeah, I mean, they could have
make it a little fucking Noah's Ark over there, dude.
They just keep going and land on
repopulate Mars with different animals and shit. That was like so many animals. They're like, hope this works. Is there a cow? Can we get a cow in here? Is there room?
Some chickens. They're small. Get a couple of those in there.
Let's get a penguin in there. Fuck, I don't care, dude. It's cold in space. They'll like it. All right, now. This is a huge jump in technology that was not realized for a very long time. Kind of one of these people in the past that you read about who had an amazing idea that didn't get picked up. Project Xanadu began in 1960. This was the first hypertext project, which is basically a precursor to the internet. There was a Harvard student named Ted Nelson who had an idea for, quote, a digital repository scheme for worldwide electronic publishing. He proposed a machine language program which would store and display documents together with the ability to perform edits. So he was basically compiling a bunch of documents because, he's a Harvard student, so this was like research-based and all that kind of stuff. And he was trying to come up with a way for people to view these documents from different places and edit them and make changes that would then iterate onto the other documents out there and stuff like that, and be able to swap back and forth between pages like non-linearly instead of having to just have one full document. That's what the hypertext kind of thing was. You click on this part and it takes you here, a table of contents, how that works on a website. And so basically his project never really was fully realized. And there was some debate, actually, even when like the internet was around. Like, is this actually an improvement over Project Xanadu? Like, which one should we have run with? But, it's so different that it's not necessarily like, oh, this is better than the internet or whatever. It just was like, if we had gone this way, this would be what we were all using.
Damn, crazy. We're in
Sounds
that
way
other
sicker,
timeline.
Though. God, we got the internet. We could have had Project Xanadu. Damn, that would have been sick. I'm going to hop on Xanadu later.
That is a way better name for sure. Damn, that's crazy, man. Just to be passed over. I mean, maybe he just wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't willing to get out there and make the money and get the funding, and I don't know.
I think it was that he was an ideas man, I think. He didn't really have the technical know-how of how to make this happen. So he worked with multiple people over the years, and they'd get some sort of, headway made on it, but never. A lot of people just gave up on the project on him. Basically, the funding wasn't there and all that kind of stuff. So, just never was.
Damn.
Another crazy thing to have read. I was looking for video game stuff, and because I have been shocked at how early on you can find video games having existed, and they were around at this time, being passed around from researchers at universities and stuff like that. But there were no big new ones that came out or anything like that this year. I did, however, find that the first ever computer-drawn film was done in 1960. It was a 49-second vector animation of a car traveling down a planned highway, and it was created at the Swedish Royal Institute of Technology. And it's weird to look at. It's sort of like Tron almost, kind of in a way. If you can look up Swedish Royal Institute of Technology. Well, let me go pull it up on here. We got the video.
Oh, yeah.
We're watching it right now. If you are checking out the video episode, you can take a look at this. Kind of looks like Rainbow Road a little bit, too, from Mario Kart.
Yeah. Took me a second to kind of realize what was happening, but I understand it now. It's like
Yeah, like on the left and right, there's like the walls of the highway, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was something they had already planned and mapped out, this highway and like where it was supposed to go on the land. So then they took those vectors, I guess, and just the points and plotted them into actually what they I think it was on this one that they used an oscilloscope. I think that's what they had used, and they're just like filming it. So it's just plotting out the points in real time in front of them, in front of the camera, which is just kind of sitting there and filming a computer screen.
Damn.
Yeah, really was pretty damn shocking to see that in 1960. I think it debuted in 61 was the first time it got shown anywhere, but they made it this year. So wild stuff, huh?
That is crazy. Damn. The future.
All right, and this is a very space-age little invention that came out in 1960. Really makes sense. This is one of those perfect ones, I think, that you go, oh, that feels like appropriate for the year. Sealed Air Co. was founded. Their main product that they made was bubble wrap. So this is the first time bubble wrap was introduced, was this year. It was actually invented as a plastic three-dimensional wallpaper was what they were going for.
What the fuck?
Yeah, weird, huh? Like I guess it was some, sort of kitschy. You think of bubble chairs and lava lamps and shit like that, and this was going to be bubble walls, but the bubbles didn't,
They
weren't
popped.
strong enough. Yeah, so then they just pivoted and started fucking packing stuff in them.
Well, it's a good idea instead of just like scrapping the idea. Like, what else can we use these things for? It's a good idea.
Yeah,
That's almost cooler than inventing it because you needed to package stuff.
yeah, that's true. That's like packing peanuts. They first were invented as food. Turns out you can't eat them, so they just put them in boxes.
That's a lie.
Yeah, I was just kidding.
It turns out you can't eat them.
These taste terrible.
Throw them in that box. All of them.
Sort of scientific thing here, too. Excedrin Extra Strength was the first multi-ingredient headache treatment. So it combined 250 milligrams of acetaminophen, 250 milligrams of aspirin, and 65 milligrams of caffeine, all into one pill. A combined attack on your headache. I think it's also cool that it came out the gate with Excedrin Extra Strength. They were just like, we're not fucking around. There's no regular Excedrin.
No one's going to
Shit
buy
is
it
all
if it's not
extra.
already extra strength.
Yeah, so I guess that also gives you room to, walk back later if you need to. Like, people are afraid of these. We can come out with Excedrin Regular. Got a couple toys here that debuted this year. This was a fucking bitch to find a lot of information when you have a year that ends in 0.
It's so
Because when-
annoying.
Yeah, I started trying to look up, like, toys in the year 1960. Because when you look up toys of 1960, it's like, here's the most popular toys of the 60s, This shit came out in 69, a bunch of stuff like that. It's just, they just lump everything into the decade that you put in there,
Yeah, exactly.
But a couple of toys that came out were the Etch-a-Sketch. That's pretty cool. Chatty Cathy, who debuted with 11 phrases that she said. Also, didn't realize that there were talking dolls that long ago that could hold that many phrases in them, you know?
Damn.
I mean, I guess they had like the drawstring ones, but this was a little different than that. The original voice of her was June Foray, who's known as a cartoon voice actor. She did the voice of the squirrel. What's his name? Rocky? Or, yes. Squirrel's Rocky, right? Bullwinkle's the moose. Yeah. She did the voice of Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle. Which is funny to think. I imagine her doing the Rocky voice for Chatty Cathy. Be like, I have to go to the bathroom.
Hold me, mommy.
Another toy that came out, and this one would definitely stand the test of time, like the Etch-a-Sketch, but one of those things you don't even consider when it first debuted. It's called a Rock-a-Stack. And when it debuted, it was 6 colored rings on a wooden base. They are, descending in size, and so that's for little children to learn about colors and shapes and sizes. And, to put the big one on the bottom, a little bit smaller, and they go up and they make like a rainbow pattern on the way up. They have been since reduced to 5, and it's made of plastic now instead of wood, but first debuted this year.
That's super cool. Yeah, I have one of those for my daughter. And it is wood. We didn't buy a wood one.
Oh, that's cool. Does it say Rock-a-Stack anywhere on there?
No, I think it's like an off-brand one.
Oh, okay. I wonder, though, it's just like, does that even... Or does it... It's also one of those things that you don't think about. You just go, I'm going to buy one of those like colored ring towers.
Yeah. It's just like a staple in our society. You don't even think about what the name is.
Yeah.
I got some books that came out this year. Dr. Seuss had a big year this year. Green Eggs and Ham. One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. And Dr. Seuss's ABC all came out this year.
Yeah, and he also had, out of his publishing house, Are You My Mother by P.D. Eastman came out this year also.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought that was Dr. Seuss. I didn't realize that wasn't him.
I don't think I've ever even read that book, to be honest.
It's someone with like a little bird that's running around to a bunch of different, like she goes up to a dog and asks if he's her mother, and then goes up to a big crane, like not a bird crane, like a construction crane, and asks if that's her mother and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do remember that, now that you said that. And then To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Came out.
Have you read it? I've only seen it.
I've only ever seen the movie.
The movie's great.
Yeah, great movie.
I've heard the book's kind of weird and like sort of, I don't want to say trippy, but there's like some weird stuff in there. It's a little absurdist at times. There's some stuff that they had to change for the movie because they're like, this doesn't make any sense. People are going to be like, what the fuck's happening? So they just had to like switch a couple things around and stuff like that. And that made me want to read it.
Now I want to read it. Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah. There was also Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which was also made into a movie. That's written by Henry Farrell. I've seen the movie, loved the movie, never read the book, though. And then yet another one that was turned into a movie that I've seen and never read was For Your Eyes Only by Ian Fleming. So it's a James Bond book. But it's interesting because it's a collection of short stories about James Bond, and he had only ever done novels before this. So I thought that was kind of cool. Made me want to read that. That seems like a fun book to read, just a bunch of different outings of James Bond. Like, get to know him more as like what was he doing on all the between journeys of these huge, giant, world-altering ones, you know?
You could just watch Archer.
That's probably true. It's a good show. And then one more I'll point out here is Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell. I loved that book when I read it in elementary school.
I don't think I've ever read that one.
It's the one about the girl who gets stranded on an island. I can't remember like when it takes place. If it's a very long time ago, if it was more of a modern story. I think it's based on a true story though. But it's a girl gets left on an island by herself and survives there for years. All right, well, ready to move on to sports?
Yep, let's do it. We'll start off with all of the champions going into this year. The World Series champions are the Pittsburgh Pirates. The NFL champions are the Philadelphia Eagles. The AFL champions are the Houston Oilers.
Oh, okay.
So this is when
it's always fun when you see a team that's just not around anymore.
Yeah, but this is like split when it was two different leagues. And then the NBA champions were the Boston Celtics. And per usual. And the Stanley Cup champions were the Montreal Canadiens. Sorry.
On November 24th, Philadelphia Warrior, Wilt Chamberlain. Ever heard of him? He put up 55 boards against Boston, the all-time record for rebounds. Just fucking
Damn.
scooping every
Holy
shot that
shit.
didn't make it, dude.
Just right there the whole
55
time.
rebounds. Yeah, I think this was prior to the 3-second rule, so you could just camp out down there, and if you were taller than everybody else, every board belonged to you, you know? Now you have to move around. Because otherwise, just the biggest guy, like Shaquille O'Neal would just sit there and nobody would score, you know?
Yeah.
55. I mean, even
that's
that
crazy.
is pretty damn impressive. I mean, that's like as impressive as his 100-point game, honestly. I mean, he scooped up over 100 points worth of rebounds. Like, those all would have added up to 110 points.
Yeah, for sure.
My last little sports thing here is that Muhammad Ali, at the time, was known as Cassius Clay. He first won the light heavyweight gold medal at the Summer Olympics and then began his pro career, winning his first professional fight on October 29th.
Damn.
So this is the start of Muhammad Ali going on to be the greatest boxer of all time in many people's minds. I don't know enough about boxing to know if that's, just patently true or if it's...
I think it's arguable because you can say that other people, like, kind of like the Jordan and Michael thing. It's like, yeah, but they came from two different eras.
Yeah, I do tend to say a lot of times the guys who were great back in the day didn't have as much competition, but they still would be in the conversation today,
Yeah, for sure. Or LeBron and Jordan, I guess is what I said. What I meant to say.
Oh, what did you say?
I said Michael and Jordan. You talked about the Summer Olympics happening this year, and I'll touch on it real quick. The Summer Olympics was held in Rome, and Wilma Rudolph won 3 gold medals, set 3 world records, including the 100-meter dash, the 200 meters, and the 4x100-meter relay.
Dang, what was she American?
Yes.
USA!
Yeah, she killed it that year.
It was also the first Paralympic Games were held this
Oh.
year in conjunction. That's kind of cool. I was trying to see if this was televised. This actually is pretty cool. I just had to look this up for the sake of my transition into television. This was the first Olympic Games to be fully covered by television. And it was a huge step as the first widespread international broadcast. So, the first time really some world event is getting shown all over the world to everybody. And the first time that we're getting to see the Olympics on television. Pretty cool, huh?
That has to be like the biggest watched event up until that time.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine. Alrighty, well, what else was on TV at the time? I'll tell you what the most watched show was. Number 1, 2, and 3 shows of the year stayed in those positions all year long. Number 1 was Gunsmoke, number 2 was Wagon Train, and number 3 was Have Gun Will Travel. People were still into Westerns pretty heavily at this time.
Yeah.
Kind of a holdover from the 50s.
Yeah. Some of the things rolled over. Yeah, I never watched any of those shows.
I think I've seen Gunsmoke before.
So I feel like I have, but I don't remember.
All right, should we look at the debuts for the year?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Big one for the year was Andy Griffith Show debuted.
Yeah. I watched a
It
lot
took
of
the
that
4th
show.
spot. Very popular right off the bat. There was also My Three Sons, which debuted, and anytime there's something that made its way into a Futurama episode title, I end up writing it down. the episode where he drinks the previous emperor because he was in the bottle, and then he becomes the emperor of that planet.
Yeah.
That one's called My Three Sons with a U.
Oh.
And then the other debut is one of these things that really meant a lot to people for a long time, but by the time that we were alive, kind of forgotten about. The Bozo Show, starring Bozo the Clown.
Oh, yeah.
This lasted from June 20th of 1960 all the way to July 14th of 2001.
Holy shit. What the heck?
Yeah, it was on the air in one form or another for 41 years. And, I mean, people think clowns are so creepy now and everything, and it's so interesting that wasn't how people felt at that. I mean, there still were, like, horror-themed clowns and stuff, but, in the 60s, it was normal to have a fucking frightening clown be the host of a child's show.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why people thought they were creepy. Maybe the people who grew up with those shows
Mm.
developed fears
I think that's probably a good point.
because
I'm just,
before that they were just fun and exciting and whatever. And then you
I
get
guess also they weren't really a concern that you had to hold because you weren't going to the circus all the time.
yeah.
You didn't have time to develop a fear of clowns because they weren't just, your parents didn't just sit you down on the TV. All right, sit here and don't make a noise for an hour.
Yeah.
Just have some guys screaming in your face.
I don't even like this.
So yeah, that's a good point though. I think that really is where all the horror writers of like the '80s and shit like that really developed because they all grew up at that time. So that really makes sense. And I'm thinking of like Terrifier. In Terrifier 2, he's got like a show that he's hosting, and that's an homage to those old movies. And so I guess that'll just kind of throw back to the Bozo show. Just quietly scaring the shit out of kids unbeknownst to their parents for years. For 41 years. Another show that lasted for 40 years that came out this year was the Bugs Bunny show.
Yeah. That's something I watched.
Yeah, and this was, it was a compilation of theatrical shorts. So these weren't all debut things, but it was, putting all that shit together for kids to watch. And this lasted from October 11th of 1960 to September 2nd of 2000. And then it
Well-
got taken off the air.
Before we talked about Tom and Jerry becoming a full-on show in itself, because like Bugs Bunny, they were kind of either starting movies or like on intermissions when you would go to the movie theaters,
Yeah.
and that's where those got their break, and now they are becoming their own shows, and that's why you said there are things that were already out, people already knew about it, but this is actually becoming like skits and shorts almost.
Yeah, and you get to rewatch them for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Similar thing with Popeye the Sailor. That came out this year as well. There was also a bunch of theatrical shorts. And Mr. Magoo came out this year, too. And I can't remember if those were theatrical shorts first. Might have been, might not. Don't quote me on that one. But Popeye was a series of theatrical shorts. The way that movies used to work back in the day, even in like the 60s, was that there weren't like set show times that you bought a ticket for. You didn't buy a ticket to go to the 3:30 p.m. showing of whatever movie. You bought a ticket to the movie theater, and they just were running shit all day long. So you could come in, you would ask the person at the front of the thing, like, oh, is the movie playing right now? You'd be like, yeah, it's in the middle of it. So you can walk in now or come back in half an hour when it's over or whatever. And so then between the movies, they'd be showing commercials and shorts and cartoons and different things like that to kind of buffer between. So it wasn't just constantly running the same movie over and over again. Then the last show I'll mention that debuted this year is my personal favorite of the year. The Flintstones came out in 1960. Got my shirt with Barney and Fred on it here.
Nice. I watched the first couple episodes.
Yeah, me too.
I haven't seen that show in forever. It was great.
I've watched the first season before and everything, and one of the things that always tripped me out is how Mel Blanc is finding the voice of Barney through the first few episodes.
Yes.
Like he doesn't, like they're working on it. He knows he's working on it. He's the master of cartoon voices, the voice of Bugs Bunny and all the other fucking Looney Tunes, really. And so he knew how to characterize a character, how to give it its own life and stuff like that. I just think it's interesting he didn't have it formed before they went in fully, and that they gave him reign to kind of figure it out. So it takes him a while to land on the regular voice. But like, there's a couple times where he's like, all right, Fred, I want to go in there and teach you how this works. It's like, that's not a good one.
And then he was supposed to be like the smart one.
This was actually the first ever animated series with a primetime slot.
Yeah.
Shown as like a regular show. And it was the first animated sitcom, which is, how animated shows went on to be, like Family Guy and everything else. All kind of based, The Simpsons, all that based on this,
Yeah.
So it was huge. Almost forgot to mention before we get off of that, I have not just the shirt on, but let's see if I can, very inflexible, but got some
Yeah.
Flintstone
the
socks
Flintstones
as well.
Those kind of socks are becoming popular, like with stuff on them, with like characters and like funny stuff on them. I see them at stores all the time now.
Well, obviously I have a bunch of T-shirts and stuff, but I used to have way more. If you remember years ago, I had so many weird T-shirts. And there was like a certain age I hit, like in my mid to late 20s, where I was kind of like, I'm done wearing T-shirts with stuff on them. And I started buying just like a lot of solid colors and things like that. And so then I started to buy really wacky socks to be like, well, that's how I'll show people I like TV shows and bands and things like that. So I had a bunch of really weird socks for a while too. So now I just have both. I just have weird clothes. Sock talk is over. Let's get on to a sock hop. All right, we are about to turn over to the music of 1960 and discuss what was going on. Primarily, our first goal here is to discuss what was happening on the Billboard charts. We're going to look at the top 5 songs. And then after that, we will discuss some more stuff about what was going on this year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's jump into number 5.
All right, number 5 is Teen Angel by Mark Dining. Released on October of 1959. I couldn't find an exact day. Did you?
This was one of the weirder years. I mean, for earlier years, I was able to track down a lot of the exact dates or close to it. And this one, I don't think I got any. Most of them were just all the months that they came out.
Pretty much what I saw the whole time, too. It was written by Jean Dining and her husband, Red Surrey. The record was not an instant success, with some radio stations in the United States banning it, considering it too sad. But it still reached number 1 for 1 week on the charts.
I saw that that justification for the banning, too, was that it was too sad. I was like, it's not because of the morbidity of it or, like, the content. It's just, no, it's sad. We don't want people to be that fucking sad. It's not like...
Well, there is, I think that is part of it, though, like the morbidity of it. I think part of it being sad, but
yeah, that just being like listed as the reason is like, oh, it's too sad. Like what if there's other like Heartbreak Hotel? You can't play that. Like, you can't go to a whole hotel for heartbreak. What are you kidding? Can have people be that sad out there? This one actually made it to number 37 on the UK singles chart, even though it had been banned by the BBC for its content, not for its sadness. They came right out and said it.
Right, yeah. I'm sure that might have been part of the reason that people went out to look for it.
Yeah.
If it was number 5 in America, they're like, hey, that's a good song. We're not even allowed to listen to it here.
Yeah. And it was known at the time in England and stuff, like they would call them death discs. Songs that were about death. There were a lot of them. For some reason, this was just a really big thing. We'll even see it more on the charts and more of the rhythm music that came out this year, but the idea of like teenagers getting killed and being in love, but I guess forever, I suppose. Like ending that love in the heat of it when it's the strongest or whatever. It's romantic or what have you. But there were a lot of those songs at this time, and they became known in the UK as death discs.
It's kind of fun. Cool fact.
And that's like, it's funny. In America, we're very sensitive to like sexual topics, Like we're very prudish when it comes to that stuff here. But in the UK, it seems like there's a lot when we're looking back at stuff that they were just very concerned with. Death was something that they censor a lot, like death discs here. And when we talked about, I want to say it was 84, but I could be wrong. But the Video Nasties, you remember that? We talked about, I think it was at Halloween time, that they like banned a whole bunch of movies because of the content of them and stuff like that. So it's funny, that seems to be their hang up, is murder. Prudes.
Suck it up.
Alrighty. That's all I got to say about that one. Oh, what do you think of the song itself?
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think of the song?
Oh, yeah. See, I thought it was... I don't know. It's a weird song. Like, the actual, production of it, like, the way it's arranged and stuff is very weird. Like, the kind of almost it almost sounds like a minstrel in ancient or in old England, like there was a man, he had a car,
like a bard with a lute.
yeah So it wasn't my favorite one, but the story of it's kind of cool. I like the kind of novelty of this song being about a dead kid.
Yeah, you know what I kept picturing was that like straight to Disney TV movie that was about Susie Q and the girl who died going over the bridge. But I'm pretty sure I've heard this song before, and I had no idea that this is what it was about. And I'm like, man, I kind of like it at the same time, but it's still like, I don't like that I like this song. It's like, it's sad that I like this song.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny, I think, that... I mean, we'll see, too, with some of the movies and stuff. It seems like people were, pretty buttoned up about that sort of blood and guts sort of stuff. So I think people were indulging in different ways. And you see that all
Yeah.
throughout time. Even nowadays, people talk about movies that are too over the top and stuff like that or whatever. But there's a reason why, so many people watch Law and Order and stuff like that. We have a morbid curiosity with death, but we're all kind of afraid to admit
No,
it.
all of those true crime
Mm-hmm.
movies and documentaries and TV shows. I mean, there's a ton of them now. You can fill
Yeah.
an entire platform basically with compilate them all together.
Okay, number 4 is Running Bear by Johnny Preston. Came out in August of 1959. Again, just the, month that it came out. But for some reason, we know it was recorded on May 21st of 1959. That was a weird thing that I was able to track down the recording dates of a lot of these songs, but not the dates they were released.
Yes.
How do we have that information handy? And not the fucking date it came out is so weird.
Maybe it was just like on the track when they recorded it,
Oh, that's a good point.
you know?
Yeah, and then it's just up to people to remember, when it happened.
Yeah, August or something like that. I don't know. Who gives a fuck?
Or I guess maybe it was like where maybe it was something where they released at this time, maybe they were releasing just all of their singles at the beginning of August or something like that. And so like when they showed up to the radio station is when they got played for the first time. It wasn't like the same way it is now where, everyone gets the song immediately or whatever, or you maybe ship it ahead of time or play
It,
this
like,
on
drops.
August 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, the mail gets to different places at different times. So this is coming out in August around the country. In Colorado, it's going to be August 10th, but in California, it's August 3rd or whatever,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It takes longer for the mail truck to get up those mountains.
Yeah.
This song was written by Giles Perry Richardson, which is a crazy, like super aristocratic name. My name's Giles Perry Richardson. You might know me as the Big Bopper. Like, well, you had to drop that name real quick. It's like, fuck, if I'm gonna make it as a rock star, I could be Giles Perry Richardson. I'll be the Big Bopper. Hey, baby. Very silly, man. But yeah, he's one of the people who was in the plane crash the day the music died. Famously, he's part of the American Pie song. This song stayed at number 1 for 3 weeks. This song actually on the charts was followed immediately by Teen Angel and was preceded by the song El Paso. And all of these songs were songs that had to do with death and young people in love. So this is more of that same stuff we were just talking about a moment ago.
I feel like this like tribal kind of music was popular around this time.
Yeah, there was a couple of, and just a lot of, everyone still loved Westerns. It was still a very
Yeah.
dominating genre of entertainment, was to just harken back to our old frontiersy days and stuff like that. So, yeah, this, makes sense that it was still, but 60 does feel like, oh, we were still on that, huh? That's kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, that it's like, 60 just is still, it's not like super 50s-ish, because there weren't a ton of these types of songs in the 50s, it feels like. This is kind of like a newer fascination, but it also feels antiquated already by this point to be like, are you still doing Ooga Chakas in the beginning of this song, The same year that this song came out, there were also versions released in Dutch, German, and Japanese. I found that interesting. This song was covered so many times, but also internationally. All in 1960. It wasn't like this was all years later. So it was such a big hit, they decided to take it to Japan, Germany, and Holland, or wherever the fuck Dutch people are.
Yes. Holland. You got it.
Thank God.
Not Dutchland.
There also were some other versions of this that I listened to a bunch of different covers of this that came out over the years. There was Stiff Little Fingers did it in their live shows. So there's a version of it on their 1983 album that has, it's sort of a compilation. There also, Led Zeppelin, I guess, reportedly did it in a lot of their live shows in the Whole Lotta Love medley. But those medleys last like 30 minutes, and I kind of skimmed through a couple of them trying to find the Running Bear, but never landed on it. So I was like, that might be lost to time, or it could have just been in there, and I just barely missed it. But I was like, I got a lot of research to do here, I'm not going to listen to hours of
well,
Led
more.
Zeppelin playing A Whole Lotta Love, hoping to find this one song off these pretty rough recordings. And then there also were versions by the Youngbloods in 1972, the Guess Who, also in 1972, Tom Jones with a sort of funky disco version in 1973,
Oh, that'd be
and
fun.
then the band Mud in 1974. Mud's a band I like, so that's why I listened to that one. Yeah, the Tom Jones one's actually pretty good. I liked it. It was kind of one of my favorite versions of this song. I would recommend checking it out just because it was like, damn, Tom Jones is a cool guy, actually, you know? He has some cool music. The Youngbloods version's probably my favorite. I like them. They're a 60s band. Their biggest song is "Come on, people now, smile
Oh,
on
yeah.
your brother," you know. But they have some cool like psychedelic stuff off that same album. Their version was probably my favorite because of the fact that they went ahead and stayed away from doing the ooga booga fucking chants at the beginning. They just jumped into the song, so I was like, I appreciate
okay.
that. And they also say Indian, as opposed to the rest of these versions, which all really lean into that J. You know, they all say Injun. I was like, that's the way people talk to the time, but you know, it's also just like when I heard their version, I was like, oh, okay. Well, not everybody did. Some people were like, maybe we'll pronounce this word correctly, as opposed to Injun.
Yeah, maybe. I guess from the South, or then people just wanted to do it just because that's the way that they sang it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're
Because I
singing
couldn't
the lyrics.
imagine Led Zeppelin having that accent. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't know about their version. I didn't hear theirs, so they might have been doing it different, or they might have just only had the music. I don't know. But yeah, the rest of them kind of were varying degrees of offensive. but you know, yeah, again, it's whatever. That was the time that it was in, so it's hard to. I wouldn't make this song now, and I hope these other bands probably wouldn't either. But the chanting in the beginning is most likely the inspiration behind the Ooga Chakas in the beginning of Hooked on a Feeling. The original one's by B.J. Thomas, but it doesn't have any Ooga Chaka in the beginning, you know. The Blue Swede version's the most well-known version of the song, and that does have it. But the first time it appeared was in the version of Hooked on a Feeling by Jonathan King, and his like chanting in the beginning is really similar to this one. I did read somewhere that he said like, oh no, I wasn't based on that song. I was always going to have like this, I think he said Rasta element to it. I was like, that's not anything, first of all. Like, I think you mean reggae, but also this doesn't sound like that, you know?
no, it doesn't. Not at all.
Yeah, so I was like, and it's like it's even more like the Blue Swede version is very ooga chaka, ooga, ooga. But the Jonathan King version is almost the same chanting as in this version of I mean, as in Running Bull. But all the other stuff being said about this song, I did enjoy it. I thought it was cool, like the switch between the verse and the chorus, you know, the kind of tempo a little bit changing and everything like that is pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was fun. I think I've heard this song before. I feel like I've heard all of these songs like in the background at some point in my life.
Yeah, probably.
But I don't know. It reminded me of. No, I can't think of the name of the song. I had it.
Walking Dog. Running Bear. Let's try to come up with another.
Walking the Dog.
Walking
No, there's like
Dog.
other bands that do like I said, like tribal or like Indian-esque music, and it just like it just reminded me of all of those other ones.
No, I found myself having the refrain of it stuck in my head. Running bear, a little white dove,
Yeah.
with love as big as the sky. And I kind of thought, you know, listening to it and putting myself, you know, in 1960 and thinking, it's a cool story. It's like a nice story of love between these Romeo and Juliet-esque lovers who have a divide between their cultures, but also a giant river between them, and that they're going to do whatever it takes to be in love. It was, you know, a cool story. I think that, you know, people were interested in Native American culture in a way that was like, I mean, it's not just necessarily bad to be like interested in these stories and want to hear them, you know?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
you know,
Well, like you said, it was part of the culture at the time. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people were still into westerns, and yeah, I could see why this would still be popular. All right, number 3 is Kathy's Clown by the Everly Brothers. It was released in April 1960, written by Don Everly and inspired by his ex-girlfriend. It sold 8 million copies worldwide, spending 5 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard charts and 1 week at number 1 on the R&B charts. The song spent 7 weeks at number 1 in the UK. It was their biggest selling number 1 hit, and Kathy's Clown was recorded in a single take with Don and Philly sharing the microphone. I thought this song was hilarious, to be honest. it was it just, I don't know, just like listening back to it, the lyrics were really funny to me.
Oh, okay. The lyrics. Okay.
Yeah, the lyrics was yeah. I got a fun little fact that the Beatles, who said that they once toyed with the idea of naming their band the Four Everly Brothers because they were such an influence to them. And I was like,
That's okay. That is makes more sense than the way I had been reading it. I thought it was the Forvely brothers, and I was like, because there were four of them. There were the Forvely brothers because there's only two Everly brothers. I don't. My brain did not pick up that it was the Four Everly brothers, which is almost a clever name.
But that would have. There's no way that would have been.
Oh, it's a bad name either way.
It's a terrible name.
It's better than the Forvely brothers.
That's true too. Sounds like you're drunk. Can I get listen to the Forley Brothers, please?
I read that. I couldn't really find any like direct, source for that. I just found a lot of people saying that, repeating that information online. So it's like, well, I guess we'll repeat it too. But I do want to point out that I don't know for sure that they ever really did toy with that idea. I just know that people have said they have. So.
Ask Paul.
You can definitely hear the inspiration that they got from the Everly Brothers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, their harmonies
Paul,
and everything.
Write us a letter, leave us a comment in the comments, and let us know if that's true.
Oh, no,
Hear
he was right. It was
from
the Forvely Brothers. There were four of us, It made perfect sense. Four of us, two of them were the Forvely Brothers. It's also been said to have been an influence on not just the Beatles, but also Simon and Garfunkel and the Beach Boys. So all of these bands that are well known for their vocal harmonies kind of were pulling from this, and I definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Everly Brothers. I like some of their other music too.
I never really listened to them. I'm sure I've heard some of their songs. I'm sure I've heard this one before, but it's not one that I'm really that familiar with. But I thought I do like this. I think they sound great.
I mean, their song "Goodbye Love." Is one is probably their most popular, even though that this says it's their most popular. But I could still, that's the one that I recognize the most.
Let me see. I got Bye Bye Love here. I'm going to listen to it for a second. Oh, yeah, I know this one.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that one. What's All I Have to Do Is Dream? That's their biggest one on... Oh, shoot. Okay. Even on Spotify, Kathy's Clown is their biggest song by a good amount. And they do Wake Up Little Susie. I know that song, too. But All I Have to Do Is Dream is really big, too. I mean, I know that one.
Yeah.
More than I know Kathy's Clown immediately. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that one. Dream, 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 dream.
Yeah.
They're a cool band.
They are, and I guess I never really realized that they were, like, harmonizing for a lot of their songs, but now listening back, I'm like, oh, yeah, or thinking back to how they sound. They do harmonize a lot of their music.
Yeah, that was definitely, like I said, all those bands specifically, especially the Beatles and the Beach Boys, were like, that's their whole deal, especially in the beginning for the Beatles. They kind of became their own two guys. But the first, few albums of the Beatles, like, it took me so long to figure out who was singing on which song because they both just sing almost the same part. I mean, they're kind of harmonizing sometimes, but sometimes they sing the same part and their voices are so similar, John and Paul,
Yeah.
The brothers Everly, much like John and Paul, they had a huge falling out in the 70s. So I guess one time there was a phone call between the two where Don demanded the rights to the song he wrote himself, which was like he was kind of the creative driving force behind the band, it seems. And so while they were on the phone, Phil agreed, okay, fine, I'll give you all the songs. I don't want to have anything to do with this shit anymore. Let's just be done. And so he signed 5 copies of different documents that were titled Release and Assignment. And like the quoted text here says, Phil Everly desires to release and transfer to the said Don Everly all of his rights, interests, and claims in and to Kathy's Clown, including rights to royalties and his claim as co-composer, effective June 1st, 1980. So he signed a document saying, I'm okay with relinquishing my rights. So in copyright law, essentially, you can change who a song is attributed to. When that sort of change is brought up, the other party has 3 years to dispute that or file a claim in court in order to, maintain that they are. So even though he wrote this, he could have disputed it and been like, no, I was drunk, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Who knows if he would have won or not. But he had 3 years to do it, and he did not do it. Then, apparently, according to Don, at some point in the 80s, they, quote, hashed it out in regards to this song and the rest of their stuff, and they kind of had it figured out. So they got kind of chummy again in the 80s, but then they had another falling out. And in 2011, Don filed to regain ownership of the song solely. And the estate of Phil, started kind of fighting back with them, and this lasted for a number of years. It wasn't until 2018 that a judge ruled in favor of Don because they had these documents that showed he had relinquished the rights in June of 1980.
That doesn't seem like it should have taken like 20 years.
Yeah, I don't know. The case, at one point, they said, like, there was a letter, because they needed to prove that Don had, at one point, tried to establish sole ownership. Because at this point, they're both on the, in 2011, they're both on the copyright for the song. Because they've hashed it out, quote unquote. I don't think they ever fully relinquished the rights. I think he signed these documents, then a few years later, they worked it out, and then years later, Don's now pissed off again and wants the song back. So I think in order to establish a paper trail is what, the main crux of the argument fell on, because I saw somewhere that it said he had sent him a letter at some point, but no one ever could produce that letter. And then there was the evidence of the phone call, but it's like, who can prove that a phone call happened? And then the documents were kind of like the last listed evidence. So it's like, I think it probably just took him a long time to be able to find them, would be my guess. I mean, 7 years?
Yeah, I mean, that had to have been. I mean, that had to have been the case, because if that was just sitting there the whole time, it's not like it would have taken that long. But
yeah,
it doesn't. But it does seem.
I'm just not sure. Come back tomorrow.
But it does seem like Don's lawyers, or whoever was taking charge of this, should have been like, no, this is a signed document. Like, that should have been one of their first things they did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In my opinion. But I mean, I guess that's foresight. But
yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting that these guys. I mean, they must fucking hate each other if in 2011, a song that's 61 years old, 62 years old at that point, you're still fighting over who owns it. Like, damn, bro, you've made enough money off of it. You're not, it's over with. I think at that point he's just trying to. And your brother's, I'm pretty sure he had passed on at that point too. So it's like, we're just trying to fuck over his kids. Like, let them have the money, dude.
Why does it matter? Seriously, if he was already gone too, that's crazy.
I guess it's just like, no, I'm about to die. I don't want my legacy to be, that I loved
Has
my
he
brother.
passed since?
I don't know. This was in 2018. It got ruled in, let's see, Don Everly first. Let's see if he's alive. He died in 2021. And then
Hope he
Phil,
died in his last 3 years happy.
Yeah. Phil died in 2014, so he died during the course of this.
That's messed up, man.
And also, who wants to
And
be
then
spending all
continue
their
to
time
go
in
through court, and then to continue to go to court 4 years after your brother died.
Yeah. Like I said, at that point, you're just now screwing over his children, which, I mean.
And what did you get to do with the money for the last 3 years that you were even alive? What'd you do with it?
Yeah,
Sitting in a bank account or whatever.
What if maybe Phil's family is terrible, and he was just like, I can't let them have this, and I need my kids to have money,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we don't know the backstory of it. Now I'm curious.
We really don't. Yeah, I know they sound so harmonious on the track, but it's not the case in real life, I guess.
Well, it fell off at some point. It worked for a while, I guess.
All right. Well, sorry, Don and Phil. You guys are, just had to go to rest unpeacefully, it seems.
Yep.
Unfinished business. Oh, well. Now, number 2. Let's get... Okay, number 2 on the charts here we have He'll Have to Go by Jim Reeves. This came out November of 1959, was recorded on October 15th of 1959. It peaked only at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, but it spent 14 weeks at number 1 on the Hot Country Singles charts. So it was a very popular song, but, just not on the regular pop charts, I guess. But so the fact that it was that popular tells you people were buying this record, obviously. This was written by a husband and wife team named Joe and Audrey Allison, It was about a phone call they had where he couldn't hear her and asked her to put her mouth close to the phone. Yeah, I guess that's how the song starts. I mean, I can see the first line. Yeah.
But I mean, I
The rest
wouldn't
of the
call it
song-
inspiration. That's just what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And then the rest of the song is not about anything like that. It's not like, the rest of it's like, and it's so loud there. Can you please leave that room? It's like, I guess you're fucking somebody else. Can you ask him to leave?
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
It'd be funny if it was just a song about not being able to hear each other audibly. When the song was released, it was originally the B-side to their other Jim Reeves's song "In a Mansion Stands My Love," but that song wasn't really doing well, and so eventually DJs just started playing the B-side instead, and then that song took off. There was a song by Jeannie Black that came out this year that reached number 4 on the charts, which was sort of an answer song. It was called "He'll Have to Stay." And it's basically a remake of this song, but just her being like, no, this guy's better, and that's why I like him. So, because you're an asshole, this guy's going to have to stay. You're going to have to go. Elvis recorded a version in 1976, which was his final studio recording. So, I guess he liked this song.
Yeah.
And the funniest version of any song on this list has got to go to... The song was covered by Joe Pesci for his album Vincent LaGuardia Gambini Sings Just For You, which is where he plays the character from My Cousin Vinny on a CD, like on an album that he just sing songs as this character. It came out like 6 years after the movie. There's like no real connection to it. Like Vinny's
That's
not
awesome.
a singer, he's a lawyer. It doesn't make any sense why this happened.
That's so good, though.
It's so funny. But that's that album I had
Does
already
he sing well, or does he like sound?
No, I mean, no, it's like a joke, and he sounds like Joe
sounds like
Pesci. Yeah. The one that I really remember the most from this album that I listen to pretty much every year is he's got a song about what if? Oh, I guess it's an old song. Again, he's covering songs on this album, but he does "What If It Doesn't Snow on Christmas," and I have that on my Christmas list, and it's like he's just. He's being Vinny and being Joe Pesci, and he's like, and if it don't snow on Christmas, he's like, how's that fat fuck gonna fly? It's so weird. Very weird album.
So random.
I love that movie so much. It's one of my favorite movies. So I was aware of this album already, and I was like, oh, I guess I didn't realize that song was on there or like recognize it, so I didn't pick up on it, But definitely a very strange album to have existed. But anyway, yeah, you can definitely see that this year has a lot of influence over musical artists, from Elvis to Vincent LaGuardia Gambini.
Tom Jones did this song too.
Oh, he did
in 1967.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of This was a year that obviously, so many musicians grew up in some year, so all of this stuff there wasn't that much music to have heard, so this would have been influential on everybody who heard it, I guess.
They had to be influenced by something, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of like the kids with the horrifying clowns.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll move on to numero uno.
Let's do it. The big bad boy, number 1.
Number 1 is Theme from A Summer Place by Percy Faith and his orchestra. Released in September of 1959, this is written by an Austrian film composer, Max Stier, who also wrote the score for Casablanca.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It won the 1960s Grammy for Record of the Year, becoming the first movie theme to ever win an award. It stayed at number 1 in the U.S. for 9 weeks. At the time, it was the longest of any instrumental. The Faith's version was not used in the movie, though. The version
I thought that was interesting.
performed by Hugo Winterbalters. Winterbalters?
Winterhalter.
Oh, maybe I just added that B when I was writing it.
I mean, that's a name right there for writing the Summer Place song. You'd be like, no more winter. We're halting that shit. It's time for summer. Yeah, I mean, there was a record for 17 years that it spent 9 weeks at the top. Like, this was the best performing song for 17 years. That's so crazy to me.
That's crazy.
It's so weird. This was a real shock to see this was number 1. Especially that it's not even the version from the movie.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
came out a month before the movie came out.
So weird. There were a couple songs that went longer prior to this song. So, I mean, it was a record for 17 years, but that's because the Billboard Hot 100 was not around when Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom Wine went 10 weeks in 1955, and Elvis Don't Be Cruel / Hound Dog went 11 weeks in 1956. So there were songs that had performed for longer, but they weren't on the same chart. So this one just held that record for 17 years as the number one performing
Damn.
song, or the longest performing number one
Longest.
song. Oh, Percy, just to not be outdone by everybody else coming out with versions of each other's songs in different formats years later, he released a disco version of this in 1976.
Was it good?
So-
Did you listen to it?
I did listen to it. I mean, it's very disco-y. It fits in with the disco era, you know, with all of the strings and stuff like that, and he just kind of zhuzhes it up. So, I mean, it works as a disco song, but I don't think it's, like, great, you know what I mean? Especially just
Yeah.
being instrumental. But I could see doing a bunch of cocaine and dancing for 8 hours straight to it. That'd be fun. That's what that was for, so. Now, this song, if you are following along, we have these songs all on a Spotify playlist, which we'll talk more about in a moment. But if you're listening to this, or if you've heard it before, or whatever, you might be in the same boat as me, where you're like, I know this, but I couldn't remember where I knew it from.
Yeah,
know?
I know I've recognized it before because I've
Yeah,
never
it's-
seen A Summer's Place either.
Yeah, I've never heard of that movie, so I was like, what the fuck is this song that I've, like, it's almost like Always Sunny music, you know? Or Trailer Park
Mhm.
Boys or something like that. But
Yeah.
so I did some digging to find places this song was used. So if you recognize the song but you're not sure where, it's possible that you heard it in the movie Con Air or Batman from 1989, or it could have been the Ocean's 11 remake that starred George Clooney, the movie Trolls from DreamWorks a few years ago, Dark Shadows, the movie with Johnny Depp about the vampires made from that TV show, Isn't It Romantic, Blade Trinity, DC League of Super Pets, Animal House, or if it's none of those movies, you could have heard it on TV, maybe in Fallout Season 1, Episode 6, or in Masters of Sex Season 2, Episode 11. Could have been Mad Men Season 2, Episode 5, or The Sopranos Season 4, Episode 1, Buffy Season 7, Episode 6, or could have also been on The Simpsons in Season 5, Episode 1. So yeah, this song has been prolifically featured in media.
I've probably seen like 85% of those things that you just listed. So
and I
yeah,
can't remember where in those movies it shows up either, you know?
The Fallout one, I think, was probably the one that I watched the most recently. So that's the one that rang the bell the hardest because it's also the trailer. So if you've seen the commercials for the
okay.
Fallout trailer, then it's on there.
Yeah, definitely a song that you can plug into so many situations and it totally works. And also because of the fact that people aren't familiar with the original movie, it just feels like, I mean, I would have thought that this was a much older composition, I guess.
Yeah, I could see that.
Actually, the one that I've seen the most recently from this list is probably Blade Trinity. I just watched that like a week ago.
Damn,
I had never
I haven't
seen
seen
that
that
one.
movie in years.
I had never seen. Actually, you know what? I had seen that one. I had never seen the second one though. The first one's awesome, and I just think I'd missed the second one somehow, and then saw the third one, and it's like third one.
Is it
But-
Ryan Reynolds in the third one?
Yeah, and I mean he gets a lot of hate for that one. And like the first half of it, I was like, he's really not that bad. He's doing the same shit he's been doing as Deadpool. You know, he's like the exact same character. And then the
He's
movie
always
kept
played
going.
that. He's always played that. Literally played nothing else except that. Every movie
Yeah.
he's ever been in.
Alrighty, got anything else to say about these top 5 songs?
Not the top 5, no.
There are a couple things that weren't in the top 5 that I was pretty surprised because they are very well known and probably way more well known than a lot of these top 5 songs, you know? Like Brenda Lee. I mean, she was all over the top 100 this year
Yeah.
with I'm Sorry. That's a cool song.
It's
She's
Now
got
or
a bunch of good
Never.
songs.
From Elvis.
People still were, happy about Elvis coming back from war because he had been drafted.
Or Korea.
You know, that was something that people were like devastated when it happened. And so then when it came back, people were like, yes, we still like you, you know?
Well, they probably liked him more even.
Yeah, I know. Especially at that time, they were like, he's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty cool though. Like, it reminds me of White Christmas. How Bing Crosby was like a well-known entertainer before he went to war.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Sir, you know, you would have to pay $660 or even $880 to see an entertainer like this in the, peacetime." I think one of the biggest ones that surprised me was that The Twist by Chubby Checker was only number 10.
I could see it still being in the top 10. It
Yeah,
surprised me. If it wasn't in the top 10, I would be surprised, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I guess also at the time, it's almost pretty impressive that he made it that far because they didn't play music from black artists typically on most radio stations. So it was something that, they'd be on the R&B charts or, as it was known for many years, the Hot Black Singles chart.
I had no idea that it was even called that.
That was what the R&B charts were referred to before they became the R&B charts. I mean, pretty fucking long time, too. Like, way later than you would think they would keep calling them that. I was like, Hot Black Singles, didn't that website get shut down years ago?
Yeah, I'm sure it's still up.
Hot Black Singles in your area.
But other things that came out in the top 100 are just classics. El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini was a lot higher
Yes.
than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
And-
that is for sure.
Save the Last Dance for Me by the Drifters. That's a great one.
Beyond the Sea by Bobby Darin.
It's a great one.
Classic. I feel like we've talked about Bobby Darin a few times on this podcast already.
Yeah, Mac the Knife was one of his.
Oh,
that
yeah.
went number one for the year. I think it was in 1959, I want to say.
Yeah.
More of that, people at this time being very interested in morbidity. The number one song was a murder song. And that probably kicked off a lot of this death disc stuff.
Yeah, maybe. I could see that. Walkin' to New Orleans by Fats Domino.
That is so funny because Fats Domino, one time I was talking with my father-in-law, and I was like, I was saying something about Fats Domino, and then suddenly I just was like, whoa. I said, I've never realized or like, put it together that Fats Domino is a play on Chubby Checker.
Oh, yeah.
And when I said that, he was like, oh, man, I never realized that either. He's like, I'm in my 60s, and I didn't know that. I was like, fuck, that's so crazy. I wonder how many people have just like, because it was just something I just was like, whoa, Fats Domino, Chubby Checker. Man, that's pretty funny. It's a good name.
It is. And I like that. And he has a better career than
Yeah.
Chubby Checkers, too.
Well, he's a better artist.
Yeah, definitely.
Walking to New Orleans is a good song. I really like that one.
Yeah. Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles. I mean, there are
Another great
just
song.
a bunch of classics on this list.
I like Money by Barrett Strong. The Beatles would go on to cover that one.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people would do it after that, too.
Yeah, some really cool stuff. A couple funny ones that I just threw on there because of the name were like Finger Poppin' Time. That made me
Oh,
laugh when
yeah.
I saw the name, so I threw that in there.
And we were listening to it in the car, and Wendy turned to me and she was like, what is that? And I was like, I guess it's snapping.
Yeah, I don't know if
Your
it's
finger
that,
popping?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that would make
Or
sense.
if you're
pop.
like
I
popping
kind of thought it was just
fingers,
like doing a little dance. But
That's what she did. She was like that. And I was like, I think it's snapping because there's like a
That would
guy
make
snapping
sense.
in the background.
yeah, that's a pop. Like that kind of, I can see that more than I was just thinking of doing little points around.
That's how white people danced in the 50s.
I liked one of the weirder songs on the list, and I kind of liked it. I kind of liked listening to it. Was Mule Skinner Blues? That was the one that had like
Which,
the guy was like blah 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 blah. blah.
oh, yeah. That
I was
one
like-
came on in the car too, and Wendy was like, change this song.
Yeah, I was like walking the dogs, and that came on. I was like, whoa, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. I like it though. I had fun in hearing it.
Edith Piaf was nice to see on there. I liked that.
Yeah. Those are after the. Or those are the ones that didn't chart. There's some pretty surprising ones in there. I guess I'm not that surprised that Edith Piaf's song didn't chart here in the States, but it's like one that's so well known, that it was like, oh yeah, it's crazy they came out that year and audiences weren't like trying to hear it that much. The most shocking one to me that didn't make it on any real charts at the time was Etta James's debut, which was At Last.
Oh, wow.
Such an amazing song. It's probably the best song on this list, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it didn't even
And
make it to
probably
the
one
100.
that's carried over the hardest.
More than most, yeah. I was also surprised that Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head didn't chart. I kind of figured that would be
Yeah.
like a super popular song back then, since it's so well known now.
It's about kicking people in the head, Trey. It's violence.
That's true. But it wasn't sad. We were okay with violence here. We weren't okay with
Yeah.
sadness.
Oh, yeah. That was the UK.
One of the funnier ones, I always put some silly things towards the bottom of the list, and one of them is Timey Kangaroo Down Sport. Did you hear that one?
Yes.
By Rolf Harris.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. It's an Australian man just giving instructions to what to do with his animals when he dies. Keep me cockatoo cool, Carl. Keep me cockatoo cool. That was a pretty good song. The weird noise in it, I guess he had some sort of board nailed to something, and he was just like by shaking it. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it does have some interesting production value to it.
Delaware by Perry Como is pretty funny too.
Yeah, what is
Delaware?
boys? Yeah, that was pretty good. Why did California?
Yeah.
What did Mrs. Sip? I thought it was actually pretty funny. Like, in spite of myself, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty dumb." But as it kept going, I was like, "Well, he's got a lot of these." He's got a pun for every state. It feels like. Who has massive, huge tits? Who's got massive, huge tits? That wasn't in there.
It was pretty good. I was like, I don't remember that one. That was pretty good.
The last track on here is not a song, but is rather a comedy bit from Bob Newhart, which this was his debut comedy album. He'd go on to be pretty popular for a number of years, being a lot of TV shows and such. But actually, I enjoyed it. I was interested to see what was stand-up comedy like at the time. The name of the album is The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, and it actually won Album of the Year at the 1961 Grammys, like full-on Album of the Year. He also got Best New Artist and was the first comedy album to win Album of the Year, and it's the only time a comedian has ever won Best New Artist.
Dang, that's cool.
Yeah, so he was popular. People really enjoyed this comedy. He was an early template of how stand-up comedy would come to look for the rest of times. You also had the first tour of a little band that was at the time known as the Silver Beatles. They had not yet changed their name to the Forvely Brothers.
And they never would, I guess.
On May 20th, John Lennon, you know the names, say them with me, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Stuart Sutcliffe, and Tommy Moore all got in a van and had a tour together. I was pretty interested about that because it's like, I know about Stu Sutcliffe. He's been mentioned a decent number of times. He was the original bassist for the Beatles. But Tommy Moore was somebody I didn't recognize.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
I read some sort of behind the scenes stuff as to why they dropped these guys, but it was pretty cool to hear how much they were like, yeah, well, Tommy was okay, but he wasn't, like, we needed a drummer. We needed somebody to sit back there and keep time, and he could barely fucking do that. Apparently, they were like, he did not have a good natural rhythm, and he wasn't that great of a drum player. And then we saw Ringo, and we're like, fuck, we need to get that guy in the band. And so they hunted him down basically, and stole him from another group essentially, and waited for him to be ready to leave that group and got him in with them because they were just like, this is the guy that's going to complete the Beatles.
That's
so,
cool.
For all that Ringo hate out there, these guys loved him.
No, he did his job really well.
I've always
He wasn't
thought that too.
he wasn't the best drummer of all time. Wasn't, but he did his job really well.
On August 17th, the Beatles debuted at the Hamburg Club in Germany, which is where they really started, and everybody knows that time. That's when they first had John, Paul, George, Stu, and Pete Best. So still no Ringo. But
that's when they started.
yeah, that's when they started as the Beatles.
Okay. One more thing before we jump off of music. Motown, founded by Berry Gordy Jr., was incorporated as Motown Records Incorporation.
That's huge.
Gonna
Much
lay
of the sound of the
framework.
60s.
Yeah, lay the framework for the 60s and the 70s, really.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of two schools of music kind of open up right here. I mean, really, totally. You got the Beatles becoming the Beatles and starting to form and stuff. That's going to influence rock and roll and that whole side of things. And then Motown Records forming is going to really help shape the Hot Black Singles charts.
For years to come.
Alrighty. Okay,
Done listening.
Yes.
Now we're going to go to the watching.
All right, let's open up them peepers, folks. We got movies to talk about. We are going to discuss the number one movie at the box office for the year 1960. And this was a fun one I had never seen before. Had you?
Nope, never seen it either.
I've never read it either. It's also a book.
Yeah, I've never read it either.
The number one movie at the box office for the year 1960 was The Swiss Family Robinson. This came out December 21st of 1960. Directed by Ken Anakin. Written by Lowell S. Hawley. Weird name. A lot of W's and L's in that name. Lowell S. Hawley. Starring John Mills. Sir John Mills. Put some respect on that name. Dorothy McGuire. James MacArthur. And Janet Monroe. A lot of J's in this cast. John, James, and Janet. It was a budget of $5 million, grossed $40 million.
Damn.
Plot synopsis here from Disney.com. This heroic tale chronicles the courageous exploits of the Robinson family after they are shipwrecked on a deserted island. Using teamwork and ingenuity, they skillfully overcome the obstacles of nature and transform their new home into a civilized community. But the ultimate challenge lies ahead when a band of cutthroat pirates threaten to destroy the Robinsons' makeshift paradise. How'd you like this movie?
I thought it was good. I just kept thinking, like, I can see why a lot of people like this movie. Just, like, it was fun with all the animals and all that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, some family fun. And, like, very cool to see at the time to be like, look at all these crazy animals.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Because, like, how many people were really watching movies or TV shows that had that kind of stuff on there? And if you didn't see them there, where else did you see them? You know?
Yeah, maybe, I guess, at the zoo or something like that. But, like, people just weren't that interested in the natural world at the time, I think.
Yeah.
And so they didn't really do a lot of learning about that sort of thing. I think you go to the zoo and you're just like, hey, look at that crazy dog. Anyway, let's walk away. You know, they didn't, like, learn about hyenas.
The crazy dog. It's laughing. Look at it.
The most upsetting scene of the movie for me, I'm going to go ahead and just open up that conversation, I guess, as we're talking about the animals and stuff. It was neat to see, and I think for audiences at the time, it was probably like, whoa, look at all this. They answer the question pretty early on in the movie, like, oh, there must be a land bridge connecting something. That's why there's all these animals that have no business being in the same place together, all on an island for some reason, you know. Because, there's just, like, animals from Africa, from Asia, from South America, all just living together in, you know, relative harmony. A tiger is just there.
Yeah.
Very Life of Pi-esque.
Yeah. So the zebra, when it was trapped, they actually were, like, electrical shocking it to, like, make it, like, squirm like it was trapped.
Yeah.
And so there's just, like, a lot of things that happened in this movie that aren't allowed to be done anymore, and that's just one of them.
Yeah, that's so fucked up. I mean, like, you don't think the zebra... I mean, I guess it was just like, the zebra doesn't look scared enough being in this pit we threw him in. How do we make him seem more agitated? Fucking shock his ass. Like, goddamn. There's
I gotta say,
so much of this.
The first couple of scenes when the dogs were, like, thrown into the water, basically, and forced to, like, to chase after him, I'm like, that's kind of fucked up what they did to the dogs. And then kind of just, like, kind of kept... Yeah, they could have been really messed up by the waves and stuff.
Oh, they could have been dashed against the rocks and just split open.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the thing. It was like, then in the movie, it just kept going, and I was like, well, that's fucked up. That's kind of fucked up. And then the dog, like, bites one of the ostriches at one point when they're during the race.
Yeah.
Like, jumps up and, like, snaps its face.
Dude, the craziest part to me was when they just released these two dogs on a fucking real life tiger.
Lion. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm sure the tiger was declawed and defanged. So then you're just having two dogs kick the shit out of a tiger who can't defend himself, you know?
Yeah.
But tigers are also really strong. He could have just crushed those animals' heads if he had got the right leverage or something. But you just see they're ganging up on him, biting him at both ends, and you know it's like, damn, this is so fucked up. I felt so bad watching it because I mean I'm a huge animal lover, so this movie was very upsetting to me in a lot of those aspects. I was like, ugh. It was a different time, but still, fuck you guys for this shit. Especially Disney,
it was crazy
because they were so well known for their nature documentaries at this point. They were extremely huge in the nature documentaries scene, like through the 50s and 60s. And they're actually the reason. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised because one of their documentaries is the reason that people think lemmings commit suicide, the little animals, and that's like why we call people who blindly follow people in front of them lemmings, because they just like fucking forced a bunch of lemmings to. They just pushed them off a cliff, and we're like, look, they're all jumping to their death for no reason, just to make it interesting.
What the fuck? What does a lemmings look like?
They're like little hamsters, kind of. They also had them. They just put them on like a treadmill and like had them with a backdrop of snow behind them, and like they migrate through the tundra. It's like they don't migrate, and they don't jump off the cliff. So Disney just fucking lied to make their documentaries better, or the Disney didn't care if their filmmakers lied to make their stuff better.
Yeah, whatever it was. Another thing that happened with one of the animals, Kevin Corcoran, the little boy, fell under one of the elephant's foot and ended up like being like right next to his face, but he got lucky because it was like where they're on the beach.
Yeah.
And when he was stepped on, like the water, he was in the water, so like the pressure wasn't as much to kill him or to hurt him, so nothing happened to him.
Split his head open like a watermelon.
Yeah, but like he was like under the water, so it didn't really happen like that.
Man, I kept thinking the whole movie. I kept going, man, these is like the actors are really doing these stunts. Like they're full on like swinging across a real waterfall, and like landing on rocks on the other side barefoot on slippery wet rocks. I was like, you guys are so lucky these actors didn't slip and kill themselves.
Well, speaking of that, when Sir John Mills was swinging from rope or vine to vine, I should say, and he went to grab the other one and he fell in the water. He missed a huge sharp rock in the water that nobody saw.
That's so wild. Especially there's a bunch of these kids jumping back and forth. Like anyone could have just slipped and fallen onto that thing at any point.
Yep.
Because he could have hurt himself, but it's also like, damn, if you in that instance, he got close to really hurting his feet. But if just any of them had fallen on accident and just get impaled by a sharp rock,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The little kid, though, man, it was just like, he was like a cartoon character that he would just like, they'd turn the corner and he'd come like, whoa, getting dragged by a zebra or whatever the fuck, It was pretty funny, but I was like, you guys need to make him understand these are not funny animals. These are dangerous creatures,
Yeah, like, get out of here, tiger, like throwing rocks at him. Like,
yeah, it was so gnarly.
When the tiger was creeping on him, it made it seem like it was hunting the boy. And then it made it seem like it was hunting the elephant, and then the boy was defending the elephant. It's like, no, the little boy would have definitely been the one being hunted in this scenario.
Yeah. Well,
if there's a big-ass elephant and a little boy, the tiger's like, I'm going for the little, smaller animal.
Like, that's a giant monkey, and he looks squishy as fuck. He's not very fast. I'm taking that thing. Oh, he's got rocks. What am I going to do? And the dog's coming and save his ass. The story is based on Der Schweizerisch Robinson by Johann David Wyss. And, this is something that when I first saw, the Swiss Family Robinson's #1, I was like, I thought I watched this for a different year on the podcast. And I was like, no. I watched Robinson Crusoe for the first time on a different year. So then I was like, wait a minute. Robinson Crusoe, the Swiss Family Robinson, are these people, like, they're not related, right? Like, that's their last name. That's his first name. So that can't be what it is. But I was like, that can't be a fucking coincidence that these two things are named so similarly, right? The original novel is what's known as, and probably the most successful example of, a Robinsonade novel, which was essentially just a whole genre that sprang up because of Robinson Crusoe and how successful that original book was. That people, for like the next 100 years, essentially. Robinson Crusoe came out. It was written by Daniel Defoe in 1719. The Swiss Family Robinson was released in 1812. So almost 100 years later, that was still just a very popular genre of books, stories of people getting stranded on islands and then having to survive like Robinson Crusoe did. There was even the book we talked about earlier, Island of the Blue Dolphins. That's based on a true story, but it's the same basic idea. Someone gets stranded on an island and has to survive with their own ingenuity and stuff. And actually, the name of the family in the original novel is not Robinson. They're not just the Robinsons. The name actually translates to the Swiss Robinsons. These people are like Robinson Crusoe, and they're Swiss, is what the name was intimating. They don't have a last name in the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're just a bunch of Robinsons. Look at these Robinsons go. Oh, they're Swiss. That's what they were trying to say. So they were not the family Robinson. They were just some Robinson-like folks.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that all very interesting and, weird that these two stories are very well known, and that's not just something that people go, oh, yeah, it's named that because of that, Well, we got the novel on the brain. Reportedly, around 90% of the novel was kind of scrapped. And the director
I saw
and
that.
his crew came up with just stuff they wanted to see happen on a desert island and kind of wrote the movie about that. I found that interesting. We both said we never read the book, so I don't know how much of that is true, but I do know that neither Roberta nor the pirates are featured in the novel, and those are pretty central to the movie. So
Yeah, I'm curious to see what it's about then. Like them just, maybe it's literally just them surviving on this island, and then, would that really make a good movie? I don't know. Like after they build a house, a tree house and stuff, and like have all these like working mechanisms, like I can see why that would be a cool book, but is that a good movie?
Yeah, and I don't know that there's even like a button to put on it, because the way they get rescued and stuff in the movie is because of Roberta's grandfather. But if she's not in the tale, I'm assuming he's not, and they're not needing to be rescued from pirates. So, like, does just a random ship come by and see them? Maybe, who knows? But or maybe they just don't get saved.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll have to read the book.
Yeah,
find out.
I mean, we'll say in the movie, I actually liked the ending. I thought it was like kind of. I don't know. It's, I guess, movie that could have only ended one of two ways. They could have left or they could have stayed, and I like the fact that they stayed.
Some of them
they were
stayed.
just like, yeah. Well, the only one that left was the boy who wanted to go to college. The rest of them all just.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Decided to live on an island, and I was like, that's kind of cool that they decided to be island folk. They're like, this is way too cool here,
I think it makes sense for the time period.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think if somebody did that, even in 1960 when this movie came out, I think it'd be like, that's kind of weird. Like if you were going from Switzerland to America or whatever, or where are they going? Papua New Guinea?
Yeah.
Which is like I guess that's not really like a habited place anyway. It's not like the first world. So I don't think they were planning on going.
They were trying to be like a new crop of settlers there, I think.
Yeah, they were trying to live a real rugged lifestyle as it was, I guess.
Actually, I did think that pretty early on, where it was like, yeah, fuck that. We're like, when they first got there, it was like, you guys are doing fantastically, and it seems like this is such a nice place to be. Where you want to go live in war? Like, this is the time where it's just like, you're surviving anyway. Might as well be here where it's chilling. There's not a bunch of war. But then war finds them. Such is the nature of man.
Speaking of the ending, the climactic battle at the ending was the influence for the Ewok skirmish in Star Wars Episode 5 or 6, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and them fighting the anaconda in the river was the inspiration behind the garbage compactor scene in Star Wars Episode 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so George Lucas liked this movie a lot, I guess.
Yeah, he must have.
Oh, just to pin some more animal cruelty onto that scene with the anaconda, she was pregnant during filming. The anaconda was. Yeah, while they're just manhandling her, and
throwing her around in the water.
Yeah. How do we? We need to get a really big ass anaconda. Well, this one's full of babies that aren't born yet. Let's smash her against rocks.
So in the end of the last battle, when the pirates fall into the pit where the tiger is, and then the tiger gets out and chases them, the guy who he's chasing ended up being the trainer for the tiger, because if anybody else did it, the natural predator instinct would have kicked in from somebody just running away and like having their back towards the tiger. So the only person who could do it was the trainer.
Yeah, and also he's just like, I'm not going to be responsible for someone else's death, Like,
yeah, seriously.
Commendable for sure by that guy to be the one to do it, because that's got to be fucking terrifying. There was a 1940 version of the Swiss Family Robinson that was released by RKO Pictures. And Disney, when they bought the rights to the script, they also bought the rights to that 1940 version of the film and confiscated all copies of it. So that way there wouldn't be any any comparison between them. People wouldn't be like, this is different from that one in a lot of ways, or that one's better, or whatever. They were just like, that one doesn't exist anymore. Ours is the only one.
Damn, it's crazy.
And there was no home video or anything else, so there was just like that movie stopped existing until they said it was okay for it to. You can actually find the original on Disney Plus now. I thought while I was watching the movie, I did think, why is he British and no one else is in his family? The dad, And apparently Sir John Mills did feel out of place.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, I feel like they were supposed to be Swiss anyway, so I was like, whatever, if he's British in there, I don't really care at this point. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, it was like, I think because I normally feel the same sort of way where it's like they're Swiss, so unless you're gonna have them all have Swiss accents, then it's fine to just be whatever. Now, Sir John Mills, while they were on set, he was visited by his daughter Haley. She was around because she was working on her first Disney movie, which is known as Pollyanna. She's young Pollyanna from the Pollyanna movie. Came out the same year, actually. And one of the crazier things about that, too, is that Kevin Corcoran has a pretty substantial part in Pollyanna as well. I was like, fuck, this kid was like on set doing all this crazy shit with animals, like was filming on location for most of the scenes, where they're in the jungle and stuff like that. Then had to go back and do, studio shots. And then immediately afterwards had to go and film Pollyanna. I was like, damn, that's a very hardworking young kid.
Dang, that's cool. I've never seen this movie either.
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about Pollyanna in a moment when we talk about other ones.
I was like, I don't think I've ever even heard of it before.
Yeah, I guess it's not one that's really talked about a lot, but it is, it was well known to people older than ourselves.
Yeah.
Last thing about this movie I'll say here is, if you've been to Disneyland, you have probably been in, or at least seen, what was once the Swiss Family Treehouse. There was in Adventureland, there's a big treehouse that you can walk up and stuff like that. It was opened in 1962 as the Swiss Family Treehouse, and then in 1999 it was rethemed as the Tarzan Treehouse. So that's what I remember going to the early one, and then when it became Tarzan, like that's where most of my memories are of it, because I think the original one was kind of boring to me. I didn't really go on it, and also I was 6 years old, 7 when they came out with the Tarzan movie. So, but I remember the Tarzan one pretty vividly. It actually got reverted back to the Swiss Family Treehouse in December of 2023. I didn't know that.
Huh. I didn't know that either. Maybe they're going to revamp it or something.
Oh, that's a good point. I was thinking that seems like such an arbitrary change to make. But this one was like, Tarzan is still a pretty well-known movie. But you're right. It probably is that they're going to do a new one, would be my guess. So be on the lookout for that. Who knows? How are we going to rate this thing out of 1,960?
Animal cruelty laws.
That's good. Yeah, that's probably a good one. Yeah. I think I got to give this. My heart is leaning towards 1,214 animal cruelty reformation laws.
I think that's a good number. I'm gonna say 1,306 animal cruelty laws.
This was, a lot of fun.
It was a fun movie and it was cool. And I think that I think this would be one that if they made it again now, it would be super cool because they would be able to do all the CGI animals and they can do all this cool stuff with it.
Yeah, this is one that it would benefit from making the animal CGI. I think normally I'm like, I don't need them to, like, it'd be cool if they made a lot of practical stuff for the island and the animals were all CGI. I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it was a cool movie, a movie they don't really make a whole lot of anymore, that type of family stuff.
Yeah.
Now, to show the dichotomy of 1960, let's get into some of the rest of the movies that came out this year. To bring it back to how I was saying earlier that this country was very interested in morbidity and stuff like that. Number one is this, delightful little family movie, and number two in the country was Psycho. I actually did not know it did that well when it released. I didn't know it was extremely popular.
I know
it's pretty cool.
It holds over extremely well.
Yeah, I rewatched it the other day. That movie's so good. But knowing so much more about horror and horror prior to this is like a crazy movie to have come out and done so well, and to come out here especially. That there was. It just is so different in tone than what audiences were used to seeing. So it had to have been insanely shocking.
Yes, and I love this movie. I've seen it a handful of times over the years.
Number 3 was Spartacus. Number 4 was Exodus, and number 5 was The Apartment. Those are the top 5 movies of the year. Have you seen any of those?
fell asleep. I fell asleep during The Apartment last night. I didn't get to finish it.
Oh, okay. I watched that last night too. I loved it. I'd never seen it, but I really loved that movie. I really like Jack Lemmon. I wasn't that familiar with him. I mean, I'd seen a couple of his movies, but doing the show, I've just anytime I see him pop up, I'll be like, oh, I'll watch that. I mean, I really liked him in Some Like It Hot. That was the first movie I saw him in. So then I was like, he was a really big deal back then, so I should get to know him. And now he's like, I really, really love his movies. And this was great. I thought it was going to be like a zany comedy from the trailer and the fact that it's Jack Lemmon and stuff like that, but it was way heavier than I thought it was going to be.
The Apartment?
Like story-wise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like especially the second half of it. It gets pretty dark for a little bit. The story, too, I was surprised that it was a lot racier than I would have thought was popular in 1960, because that one won the Academy Award. It's all about...
Apparently I didn't watch enough of it. I watched it all the way up until the point where they were having dinner and she was supposed to go and have a date with the main character.
Okay, yeah, and then that's when it starts to kind of, it just gets more dramatic, I guess I'll say, as it goes along. I also watched Spartacus for the first time. I had never seen that before.
I'd never seen that. I've seen versions of it. Never seen that movie itself.
It was pretty decent, but also I thought it was interesting. It reminded me a lot of Ben-Hur, which we've talked about, and Kirk Douglas actually tried to make Spartacus because he wanted to play Ben-Hur, but didn't get the part. So he was basically like, well, I'm gonna fucking make my own movie then. That's basically like the same sort of deal, a big epic movie. But I thought that was crazy because Ben-Hur was made because the director of that film wasn't able to do the Ten Commandments and was like, well, fuck you, I'll make my own big epic movie. So it's just like these kind of people keep getting, spurned for the movie they want to do, and they're like, well, I'll do my own. And they come out with another amazing movie a couple of years later.
Well, there's one motivation, like spite.
Yeah, I'll show you. And then they do. They do show them,
They just show them exactly.
And then I've never seen Exodus, but that's it for the top 5 movies. What else from this year did you make note of?
I wanted to watch 13 Ghosts, but I did not.
I did watch that one.
Was it good?
I had never seen it before.
I liked the
I enjoyed
newer
it.
one.
Yeah, I know. That's such a hated movie, and I've loved the original 13... I mean, not the original. The 13 Ghosts that came out when we were younger with Matthew Lillard.
Yeah. Yeah, it scared the shit out of me when it came out.
Me too. So I was like, I have to watch the original to see what it was like. And there's some really cool effects in this movie for the time. A lot of the ghost work is pretty cool. The movie's kind of cheesy a little bit, but I enjoyed it. It reminded me of The House on Haunted Hill and stuff like that. And that's really more of a good representation of what horror movies were like at the time, where things like 13 Ghosts. It was stuff like, here's a haunted house and a bunch of scary ghosts are there, and a lot of period pieces as well. Like The House of Usher came out this year, is another horror movie, and that's I didn't know that was something that, because they remade that a couple years ago. Mike Flanagan from Haunting of Hill House and other stuff, he's really a good director of horror stuff. Mm-hmm. He did a show called House of Usher, or The Fall of the House of Usher. So it was based on the same story this was based on. But some other horror movies. Eyes Without a Face is fantastic. That's a French movie. I didn't rewatch that, but I love that movie, so I recommend checking that out. Really, really great movie. Not just a good horror movie. It's sort of more elevated than a lot of the stuff on the rest of... Well, actually, this movie had a lot of interesting horror movies. Village of the Damned is one I've always wanted to see. I hear talked about a lot. Never Take Sweets from a Stranger looks cool, and I didn't get a chance to watch that. But one I did see for the first time was Peeping Tom, is a movie where a guy is... he has a camera, and he films the faces of his victims as he murders them. And so it's sort of like him, trying to evade the cops and stuff like that. And then he ends up kind of working with the cops throughout the movie and stuff. It was really good, but it also was super early in terms of POV shots in horror movies. That was something that wasn't super common. But Psycho uses some of those as well. So that's those tropes are getting established this early on in the horror genre. And the the sort of footage being seeing it through the actual camera that he's using, that was all very early on. And both of these movies are kind of the more or less the original examples of slasher movies. So, not just haunted house or scary monsters or whatever, but the monster is a person, and both with knives and stuff like that. So it's those tropes and the POV shots, all of that gets established this early on in that genre. So those are both pretty cool. And I did like Peeping Tom, and rewatching Psycho was great. So if you like horror movies, check those out. Little horror adjacent. Well, at this point, it was just a horror movie. is The Little Shop of Horrors. Came out in 1960, the original.
Oh, I've never seen the original.
It's not worth watching. I'll tell you that right now. This movie I had seen when I was a kid, when I was like 13 probably. My parents were like, "Listen, you like weird stuff. You're getting weird in your tastes. Have you ever seen Little Shop of Horrors?" And I said, "No." And they said, "That is so far up your alley. You got to check that out." So I found the DVD of Little Shop of Horrors and saw, "Oh, it's Jack Nicholson, one of his first movies. That's cool. I didn't know he was in that." My parents were like, "Yeah, neither did we." And I went home and watched it, and it's all in black and white, which I wasn't expecting at the time. And I was like, I thought there was music in this. It's not a musical. It's really not scary. It's not funny. It's not a comedy either. And it was just really dry and boring the whole time. And I was like, I don't understand why my parents thought I would love this. It's okay. And then they came in or something while I was watching. They're like, "Oh, that's not what we were talking about at all. Like, that's so different than the version of the movie that we thought you would like." I love the Rick Moranis one. This one was not not for me.
Not that.
At the time. Yeah. So, but it is what the rest of that stuff is based on, which I find so fascinating. Like, musical theater people are so interesting that they were like, that weird kind of boring horror movie, let's turn that into a hilarious, strange musical,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. In terms of Westerns, a couple big ones. Probably the biggest, though, is The Magnificent Seven.
Yes.
I've seen the remake, but I've never seen the original.
Yeah, I've seen the remake. I've never seen the original either.
That was another one I almost threw on. But the other thing about movies from this year is most of them were very long.
Yeah, that's true.
2 hours plus on most of these. There also was The Alamo and Cimarron were both pretty well known at the time. And then the original Ocean's 11. I mentioned the remake earlier, but the original one came out this year with the Rat Pack. Didn't get around to seeing that either. And then the last one I'll point out here is Pollyanna. We talked about that a minute ago with Haley Mills. That's a movie that's... I know this movie because of the fact that we had the VHS, and it's one of those I've mentioned before. There were just a handful of VHS tapes that I had in my house that I just never got around to watching, and E.T. was one. Pollyanna was another one. I vividly remember the blue VHS case that we had in my house, and for some reason the girl's face on there was just and I thought, ugh, that girl looks like she's going to be so annoying, and so I never watched it. And so I finally was like, oh, Pollyanna, I should check that out because I know my parents must have liked it for them to have had this sitting around. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was very delightful. I had a very good time watching it. And as I was watching it, my mom came in and she went, oh, Pollyanna, oh my God, I love this movie. And so she came and sat and watched the rest with me. And it's one of the things I liked. I kind of knew about it recently, I heard, was there's a lot of movies that came out, especially in the 80s, where the main premise is somebody shows up to town. And at this point in the 80s and stuff, it's a lot of it's a weird person shows up to a small town and then has to get the town to unbutton themselves a little bit, start living life less the way that they've been living it. You know what I mean? There's Elvira's Haunted Hills is one where she goes and visits a small town and is refurbishing a house. There's Big Top Pee-wee where he goes to a small town and has to do a circus. To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. And I heard those movies described as Pollyanna movies recently. And I went, oh, I didn't know what Pollyanna was about. Never had any clue. And she's an orphaned girl who goes to live with her aunt. And she's just so sweet and positive, and her aunt is kind of a bitch, and she runs the town, and Pollyanna comes in and just through the town fair, she kind of has everybody loosen up and start enjoying their lives more and stuff like that. And I just thought it was a really sweet movie.
All right, well, was that wrapping it up for movies?
I think so. I think that's about all I have to say about the cinema of 1960.
All right, well, what was your favorite thing out of anything that happened this year of 1960? What would you take home and then leave everything else in the dust?
Oh, I'm actually pretty torn this year because I have three things that I'm very, very passionate about in my life. Big part of me wants to save Psycho because it's so good and really paved the way for so many things. And then part of me wants to save the Flintstones because I love that cartoon and all of its iterations when I was growing up. But I think I'm going to pick something that's more recent to me and go with Eyes Without a Face. I think it's a really great movie, and I'm sure not a ton of people have seen that one. So I would save that and say, here we go, folks. That's what you're going to have from horror for this year. How about you?
I think that mine is gonna have to be Psycho.
Okay.
I was honestly torn between Dr. Seuss
Oh, yeah, that's good too.
and Psycho, but I love Psycho, and I also love Alfred Hitchcock's Hour. And I feel like if we don't have Psycho, we don't have that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he is a master of horror. Like I said, I almost saved it. And you can always read your daughter the novelization of Psycho if you don't have green eggs and ham. So there
Yeah,
you go.
exactly.
All right. Well, I had a lot of fun in 1960. I kind of went into this one expecting it to be, and like I kept saying, it didn't have a strong identity. I felt like so I was like, oh, this is going to be like a random smattering of stuff, But it's kind of actually almost reminds me more of kind of today in that it was sort of all over the place. There wasn't really a defining genre in the music or in the movies. There was kind of a lot of horror that really surprised me across the board, and so this was a cool year.
So going into it, I was excited, to be honest, and it kind of just never stopped. Like usually, like I'm like, okay, I can kind of let this be and then not like do any more research, but like the research just kept going and going. I could have just kept going a lot this year. Well, until next week, I know what I'm going to be thinking.
Yeah, me too. That we
We'll be thinking,
wish we were then.
we were then.